and show begins in about 5 more seconds. Thanks for joining us. Cheers. On today's show, we take a closer look at crew life and what it takes to get on board a cruise ship for 6 to 9 months and get paid for it. We'll find out why all security guards on cruise ships are from India and how to save some serious money while cruising. All this and more coming up because this is Cruise Week TV Live. What's going on, cruisers? I'm Joe, and I love to travel. I've done road trips all over the USA and in parts of Mexico, sailed on Carnival, Disney, and Royal Caribbean cruise lines, but I still consider myself a novice when it comes to cruising, and that is why I'm here. We bring on the experts to tell us all about the hidden tips and tricks and background information that you probably don't know about cruise ships. Our guest on tonight's show is going to be Amanda Hawthorne, who is a cruise ship recruiter. Before that, she sailed the world over, working multiple cruise lines and paying back her $35,000 college tuition in her first year on board. But before we go to our guest, I want to tell you first about vMix, because without them, we wouldn't have such an amazing looking show. They produce the live video production software that runs our show, and now with vMix 19, it's possible to have up to 8 guests on at the same time. And if you're trying to produce a live web show, you need vMix. So for a totally free 2-month trial of vMix, go to vmix.com, and we thank them so much for their support. So now, without any further ado, we're going to go to our very special guest, Amanda Hawthorne. Amanda, you managed to live for a year, plus pay off your $35,000 student loan. What were you on the cruise ship? Were you the captain or something?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, thanks again so much for having me. But yeah, so altogether, I worked on board cruise ships for a decade, so 10 years all told. The first 5 of those years, I worked on board as what's called a seasonal youth activities staff member. And that's what I was doing for about 5 to 6 months of the year, every year for that first 5 years while I was still in university. And then when I was done university, I actually got promoted to an onboard crew training position, crew training officer. And that was the year, that was my first full-time year on board, so year 6. And that's where I actually made enough in that first year to pay off over $35,000 in student loan debt. And then I continued on for another 4 years after that. And actually, the last 3 years I was on board of my 10, I was further promoted to onboard HR manager, which is a 3-stripe officer position. Yeah.
Wow. That's. But I mean, honestly, how did you like? I mean, so you managed to pay off your $35,000 student loan. That's the part that really, I mean, any college kid wants to know how to do that, because most college kids don't know how to. Like, I mean, they're looking forward to paying off their student loans when they're like 90. You did that in the first year.
Yeah, it was a really great feeling. And actually, and not only that, but that whole time that I was going to university, that first 5 years, I never had to pay for rent or food or anything like that in my summer vacations or anything like that during university, because I was on the ship. So that was the first 5 years. And then that first full-time year, I paid off the student loan debt, but I also still had extra money during my leave. So I was on board, I was on a 4-month on, 2-month off rotation. So 4 months on, 2 months off for that first year that I was on full-time as crew trainer. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. All right. So now we have some questions coming in from some of our guests. One of them, the first one that I have comes in from Miss Mary Ann. And she wants to know, what kind of jobs do they have for old people like her? She just had her 60th birthday recently. She had such a birthday that the candles all just happened to melt the rest of her cake. I saw this one. She says maybe she's going to sell the house and quit her job and work doing that. So what kind of jobs would you have for Miss Mary Ann?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Actually, I would say a majority of my clients are over 45. There is no age maximum when it comes to um, crew positions on board. So most cruise lines do have a minimum age requirement of 21 or over. And actually, the oldest crew member I've worked with personally was in youth activity staff, and she was almost 85 years old. So just because you're in your 50s or 60s doesn't mean that this is not an option for you. I definitely say if you are in that age range, you probably have quite a bit of life experience and work experience. So you would more likely want to look at more of a supervisory or managerial role, hopefully within the hospitality sector, hotel front desk, retail sales, photo. So if you have some of those skills, managerial ones, then that's something that you should definitely look at. But really, the whole ship is open to you, no matter your age. So that's definitely what I would want Marianne to know.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Also, like, curious now, while you were at university, what degree was it that you actually went for?
So I did 4 degrees in 6 years, or 5.5 years. So I have a geography degree, an English degree, an outdoor rec degree, and also a teaching degree. And I did all of those 4 degrees. I did two at a time throughout that 5.5 year process. So yeah, so those are all of the degrees that I have. And that last degree, the teaching degree, was um, really the cornerstone of the reason why I was selected as an onboard crew trainer initially with Princess the first time they rolled out the position in 2005. So yeah, it all kind of came together and worked out.
Well, great. Now, curious. Now we said in our intro that we were going to learn today also about why all the security guards are from on cruise ships are from India. Could you tell us more about that? I've personally I didn't know that before like a couple days ago.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the cruise line. There are quite a few security patrolmen, we refer to them as, that are from India and also Nepal. And there are also quite a few security specialists that are from the UK, Canada, America, that are all military trained as well. That has a lot to do with the type of training that's required for the roles, and it also has somewhat of something to do with the fact that certain cruise lines have certain contracts with certain countries' recruitment partners, and there is an agreement that there will be certain departments that are only hired from those areas. But it also should be noted that the Indian and Nepalese Gurkha trained staff are very, very highly trained when it comes to the security that's required on board. So that's kind of gives some reasonings as to why. But it really, you really do have a multi-ethnic group when you're talking about security, although the people that you do often see on the gangways will traditionally be from India or Nepal.
See, I would have never known that if you had you not told me about that. I've noticed like every time I've gone onto a cruise ship, I've noticed a very multi-ethnic group of people that work there, which is which I find to be it's very good, very it gives everybody kind of a view of the whole world in a way. So now, what are the major benefits that people get that are working on a cruise ship? Why is it the bomb, so to speak?
So I would have to say there's three major benefits, and actually this exact question is what I have my very first video on YouTube. If you search "Get a Life at Sea," I've got about like 30 plus videos all about how to get a job on a cruise ship and life at sea. But my very first video is on benefits, and for me and really all the crew members that I talk to, there are three main benefits. Obviously, number one is the travel for sure. Having worked on board for 10 years, I've been to every single continent in the world except Antarctica. So I've been to hundreds of cities around the world, and travel is definitely number one. Number two is the money. You have an amazing ability to make and save almost everything that you make because everything's provided to you on board. You don't have rent or grocery bills or regular hydro or electrical bills or any of that. So it's a rare opportunity to actually save almost everything you make each month. And I would have to say number three would probably be the people. You meet, as you said, so many amazing people from around the world, and you become such quick and close friends with those people, and they stay in your life for forever. And before you know it, after a few contracts, you have friends literally around the world that are super excited to have you visit whenever you can. So I would have to say those are the top three benefits.
Well, now having friends around the world is one thing, but what about a married couple? Let's say there is a married couple. This question comes in from Barb. Let's say there's a married couple that wants to apply to get jobs on a cruise ship. Will the cruise ship hire a married couple? Or a cruise line hire a married
Yes.
couple, rather?
Yeah, that's a really great question. There are definitely some cruise lines that are better than other cruise lines when it comes to working with married couples to get them on together. I actually have this exact question coming up, and I'm going to be addressing it in my upcoming Cruise Ship Jobs 101 course I'm launching at the end of April. I'm going to have a whole module on exactly this because it's a question that comes up a lot from potential clients. I would have to say, though, yes, it's definitely possible. There are certain positions where it's better that you apply as a married couple than others. For example, art auctioneers. The concessions that hire art auctioneers, they love to have married couples because it's such a big job that having a couple work it together is really beneficial for the cruise line. So certain positions will be more beneficial for couples to apply to. And also if you're not maybe say qualified for an art auctioneer position, then I would say, and I would recommend to couples to try to apply to the same department together, because it's a lot easier for a cruise line to get you on the same ship if you're within the same department versus applying for separate departments. Then it becomes a little bit harder.
Gotcha. Okay. So now we've also talked. Now we've talked a lot about like where we've touched on it a little bit, but like how like the cruise ships are very diverse when it comes to people from different countries, different places. Did you learn any different languages by working on cruise ships? And this question actually comes in from Shannon.
I definitely brushed up on certain languages. Being Canadian myself, I have some French already, and I was able to pick up a bit of Spanish and also Tagalog, which is the Filipino language. So yeah, I definitely was able to pick up elements of different languages. And then also part of my responsibility as well as crew trainer was to provide additional English language training for a lot of our staff on board. So they were really grateful for that additional training. So I often got free other language trainings as well from staff. So that was great. And actually a lot of cruise lines also provide free Rosetta Stone training for all crew in any language that they're interested in learning. So that's another huge benefit, I guess I should also mention, is that professional development training for crew in regards to languages or anything else you want to learn is often provided free of charge by the cruise line.
Was there any kind of a culture shock when you did your first cruise?
For me, not so much. In addition to my 10 years that I've worked on board cruise ships, I actually spent the first 3 years of my life on ships as well. Kind of crazy side story. So my dad is a ship's captain, and he was on cargo ships. And basically from year 1 to year almost 4 of my life, I lived on board cargo ships with my mom and my dad, who was captaining. So I've always sort of been in the environment of multiculturalism. And then having grown up in Vancouver, Canada as well, we have a very diverse city in Vancouver, BC, with lots and lots of ethnicities. So it wasn't so much culture shock, and it kind of felt a bit like coming home just because I'd spent such a large part of my early life on ships already.
Okay. So now this next question comes in from Elle. She wants to know what cruise line is it that you work for now?
So I don't actually work for a cruise line myself anymore. I have a little 3-year-old boy, and so I'm not currently working on cruise ships. So I worked 10 years on cruise ships. I worked another 6 years after that in cruise ship recruitment for one of Canada's official hiring partners for Princess. And then 2 years ago, I started my own business called getalifeatsea.com, where now I provide resume consultations and cruise ship employment coaching to clients that are looking to break into the industry. I do some very specific hiring right now for Holland America, very high-end F&B hires for them. And I do send some people Princess's way. But the lines that I specifically worked with were, when I was on board, was Princess, Royal Caribbean, Cunard, and also P&O Australia.
Oh, very nice. So Miss Marianne wants to know, how does one apply for a job on a cruise ship? Is it online, or is it phone call, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Depending on the cruise line, there is a variety of methods that each cruise line will prefer that you use. Most often, what you would want to do first is do your research. So you can go on to each cruise line's website and try and find their career or employment link. Often that's kind of hard to find because what a lot of people need to realize is that cruise lines develop their websites for the passengers in mind, not necessarily for the crew. So sometimes it can be hard to find that info. Usually it is on the bottom of the homepage. You can click on that, and then you'll get directions to whether or not that cruise line has a hiring partner in your country. If that's the case, the cruise lines usually do prefer that you go to that official hiring partner first and then apply directly online with them thereafter if you need to. And then some other cruise lines actually have concessions as well that they use. But what I have that makes it super easy is if people, they can check out my website at getalifeatsea.com. I actually have a really easy to use how the heck to get a job on a cruise ship guide, which is over 50 pages of information, including all the cruise lines clickable employment pages, step-by-step application instructions, resume templates, and pretty much everything you need to know, one-stop shop if somebody is interested in applying and not wasting hours and hours trying to find the info, because it is a little hard to locate.
Wonderful. So tell me, and this is a question that I get probably every week in some form or another. It is a food related question, and I find it very important. So,
Okay.
what are the top 5 crew foods that you like to eat on the ship?
Top 5 crew foods. I would have to say the fruit salads, because depending on where you are in the world, especially if you're doing like the Caribbean or something like that, the fruit that comes on board is absolutely amazing. So the fruit salads. What else? The desserts for sure, but you can't eat too many of those. What else? The sushi. I really love P&O had an amazing sushi bar, so I really loved going there. Just being from Vancouver, where like it's a sushi city in Vancouver. And yeah, I have to say those are kind of my top 3. Did you ask for 3 or 5?
Those are definitely your top 5.
Those are my top
You,
3.
those are your
It
top
kind of
3.
depends too. It's a
Okay,
hard question
sorry.
to answer because depending if you're crew, staff, or officer, you get different kinds of food depending on where you are in the
Ah,
hierarchy on board. So when I was youth staff, I would like certain things, and then when I was an officer, when I was training, and also in HR, I got like access to different foods in addition. So kind of depends on where you are in the spectrum.
gotcha. So now we have a question that came in from Periscope. This one comes from I Love Cruising. She wants you to talk about a little bit about the living arrangements on a cruise ship for the crew.
Yeah, and that's a really great question. And actually, that's a great segue because when I talk about those 3 tiers of crew that exist on board a cruise ship, so you have your crew, and then you have your staff, and then you have your officers. So if you're crew, and that's the bulk of the ship's company, really, you are going to be sharing a cabin, most likely with 1 to possibly 3 other people. So it's either going to be a 2 or 4 berth cabin. Personally, I've never experienced a 4 berth cabin, but typically definitely 1 other person from your department that you'll be sharing with. You'll each have your own bed, you'll have a desk to share, and usually a washroom to share as well. It's not going to be big. It's going to be below water level in most cases, so no windows. And then when you reach a staff level, it's pretty much the same thing. You're still sharing a cabin, similar cabin situation. And then when you reach an officer level, that's where you get your own cabin, double bed, porthole, your own room steward to come and clean your room each day. So as you move up in the hierarchy and you're promoted, your cabin size and the benefits increase.
Very nice. So this next question comes in from Kevin. He wants to know what has been your favorite port.
I would have to say my favorite port, or ports rather, are throughout the islands of Vanuatu. When I was with P&O Australia, we primarily did Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific. And I was lucky enough to be able to stop many, many times throughout the islands of Vanuatu, which is over 100-island nation in the South Pacific. And the reason I loved stopping there at those islands was because it was so undeveloped in a lot of those places. Tourism hadn't really hit, and oftentimes our ship was maybe the only tourists that were being provided to the islands. So you really got a chance to soak up the island culture and get to see the people in their truest sort of form. And so that was really, really special. And I actually got to see experience things like kava ceremonies and land divers and all sorts of really cool traditional sort of celebrations. So that was really awesome.
So now, overall, do you feel that it is? Do you feel it's somewhat difficult at all to break into the cruise line industry to get a job on a cruise ship, or compared to like, let's say, getting a job, I don't know, somewhere in within the United States on land, or do you feel like it's a little bit easier?
I have to say it can be very difficult if you don't know where to start. I would have to say most of my clients are American, and it can be very difficult as an American to figure out the best strategy for yourself when it comes to how to apply and for what position to apply to, for example. So yeah, it can be very difficult, but with the right resume and the right job objective that matches exactly what your criteria show, then it is actually can be quite easy. So actually, if you check out my YouTube channel again, I've got a great video called Tips for Americans when it comes to applying for a cruise ship job. And that really gives some definitive steps, because what I recommend in that video is that Americans actually look at the Canadian hiring partners. What people don't realize is that the main cruise line offices are often based in the US. And because of that, they tend to get thousands, over 10,000 applications per day for cruise ship positions, whereas the smaller partner offices, they're only getting about 500 to 1,000 applications a day. So you have a much higher chance of getting noticed if you go often through a partner than you go through the lines directly.
So now this next question comes in from Charisse. She asks, what is the difference between the crew and staff if you all have the same accommodations?
So the main difference between the crew and staff benefits, namely there is a different or a different mess, and a mess is like an area where the crew go to eat. So the crew will have a crew mess and the staff will have a staff mess. The staff mess sort of caters more to Western taste when it comes to food. So there's more Western types of food. And then the crew mess has more food that is geared towards our Filipino, Indonesian, and Indian staff. So that way, each sort of department is provided with the food that is most culturally acceptable for them. And then the other main difference is that often crew won't have passenger area access to use in their off-duty hours, but often times staff will have access to some passenger areas when they're off duty. So that's kind of the main differences.
Okay, so now you mentioned something on here that anything that has to do with food, it kind of just strikes my interest. So you mentioned that you have like more Western style foods for one group and more in Filipino and like in Eastern style foods for another.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what if, I mean, let's say I was working on the cruise ship, but I really liked Indian food.
Mhm.
Would I be able to go like have maybe some Indian cuisine?
Oh
Would that be
yeah,
a
and I love Indian food too. Yeah, and no, you totally can. So if you're an officer, you can eat in the officer's mess, the staff mess, or the crew mess. If you're a staff, you can eat in the staff mess or the crew mess. If you're a crew, you kind of have to stay in the crew mess. So it kind of has that waterfall down effect with regards to where you're able to eat.
Okay. So now,
Mhm.
what about getting port time off the ship? Are there certain positions on the ship that get some more like time off the ship, like when they go to port, or are there some that get a little bit less time?
Yeah, and actually, this is another huge module that's going to be part of my course, the Cruise Ship Jobs 101. But I would have to say two major departments that have some of the best port time are retail sales and also casino, and sometimes production. But retail sales and casino specifically because all of the shops on board any ship must be closed while in port. That is law, and also the casino must also be closed when in port. So those staff have some of the best port time periods off because they're literally not allowed to be at work.
Oh, all right. So I know I'd probably want to work one of those jobs if I like. Honestly, like working on a cruise ship, I would see the best benefit of that would be the travel. I love to travel, so it's like that would be if it was me, I would see that as probably one of the best benefits is getting to see the rest of the world, in one
Yeah.
sense or another. So
Yeah,
this
and the
next
free
question.
tours too. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, exactly that too. That's
Well,
actually
yeah, because that's a huge benefit. I mean, crew get free tours. The amount of tours that I have done that passengers literally pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do is crazy, because most cruise lines will offer crew, staff, and officers the ability to sign up to be a crew escort on any of their tours, because the cruise line always wants a representative from the company to be on every tour, just to support the guests in case they need any assistance. There's always a proper tour guide, of course, but you just kind of show up as an escort, and you get to take the tour for free. And I've been, dog sledding in Alaska, wine tours in Tuscany, going to see the Russian Palace in St. Petersburg. So yeah, there's other benefits that come, not just your own travel, but free tours too.
You are making me so jealous by telling me about all the countries you've been to. I can't even begin to tell you. Like it's I love to go places, so this is just making me super jealous. So this next question comes in from Shannon. She wants to know now who prepares the food for the staff on the ship.
So we have the same staff that provide the dining room food for guests are often in the other crew galleys as well. But often what we'll do, and because I was a trainer, I have pretty in-depth knowledge regarding this, what we'll do for new galley crew, so new kitchen crew coming on, is we will put them in the crew mess galley and also staff mess galley to train them up to move to the passenger galleys once we feel that they're at a good standard to do so. So it's kind of like a training ground when it comes to the galley staff. Yeah.
So if someone's applying to get a job on a cruise ship, what would be the best way to get? What would be the best entry level position to have on a cruise ship? Just out of curiosity.
I would have to say there's kind of 5 departments that I would say are kind of best entry level. And the reason I say these 5 is because most people, I would say most people out there have some experience within these 5 realms. One is youth activity staff, because so many people have experience working with youth or teens, whether it's in a voluntary or paid setting through day camps, summer camps, boys and girls club, etc. Then there's crew staff. Those are the people hosting and facilitating events for the adults on board. A lot of people have, MC experience or events coordination experience. Retail sales, as I already mentioned, there are tons of people with at least some experience within retail sales. So obviously you get great port time with that. So that's why I say that one. JAP, which stands for Junior Assistant Purser. Those are the hotel front desk staff. So if you have a year to 2 of hotel front desk experience, that is a great entry-level one to break into. And finally, this doesn't apply to everyone, but photo staff. Cruise lines are always looking for good photographers. So even if you have some studio and or freelance experience, that's another great one to break into as well. And all of those departments that I've just mentioned are also very large departments on all the cruise ships. So there's always available positions often within those fields. And for all of those roles, and for really any role on board, what the cruise lines are looking for is a year to 2 of relevant and related experience in a similar position ashore.
Very nice. Now, the minute you said photographer, by the way, I was like this. I was raising my hand. That's one of my areas of expertise is photography. Now, this question, I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, but I'm going to try my best. I think his name is Noj. And he says he's a crew member. Like he was a crew member for almost 10 years, and he wants to know why most cruise lines are kind of biased to hiring people from more Asian countries.
I think right now there is a large percentage of people from Asian countries being hired because there has been a massive boom in the last 3 years, and it continues on in China specifically. The Chinese middle class has been growing, and they have started cruising. And so the Chinese cruise market is just taking off. And because of that, a lot of the cruise lines right now are building ships specifically for that market. And they also want to ensure that they have a certain number of crew members on board that have those Asian languages as well. So Mandarin, Cantonese, Japanese. If you speak any 3 of those right now, you can pretty much sneak in with most cruise lines with a minimal amount of experience, and they'll train you up because those languages right now are very hot.
Very nice. So now this next question comes in from Jason, and this one's, I mean, if you get a job on a cruise ship, I'd want to know this. If a crew member gets sick at sea and has to become hospitalized, will the cruise line pay for the expenses of the hospitalization and the medical expenses, or is that something that they'd have to cover separately?
Yes, so the cruise line will. The reason that they will is that all cruise lines, before you even join for your first contract, require you to do a pre-employment medical, and that just checks to make sure that you're, healthy and ready to go before you join your first ship. Those pre-employment medical checks are good for a 2-year period, and that is what covers you medically when you're on board working on the ship. So if anything happens, you will be provided for by the company. When you're on board. Now, that being said, we always recommend that crew members keep their own medical going for when they're home on leave, because the cruise line won't cover you when you're home on leave, but they will cover you if anything happens on board, emergency, or you need to be put off the ship for surgery. Actually, a good friend of mine, James, he worked in the casino with Royal, and he actually needed some, I think his appendix almost burst, and he actually had to get off. We put him off in Australia. He was on shore for 2 weeks, got the appendix out, and then came back on board, and the company provided everything.
Okay, so now what do you think about the new ships coming out? Do you think the new ships happen to be too big, and how big is too big for a cruise ship?
I do think that there's definitely pros and cons when it comes to the size of ships. I've worked on, small, medium to large ships, and with the smaller ships, you definitely get to visit some places that the bigger ships can't get into. There's more of a family type of atmosphere when it comes to getting to know the crew members and getting to know the other guests. So I do like that for myself. But then there's something to be said for the bigger cruise ships as well, because with the bigger ships, you get way more amenities on board. The ship is the destination. So I think it kind of depends on the experience that you're looking for.
Excellent. All right. Well, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. Your interview has been it's been incredible. You answered a lot of questions that we've all seemed to have, and we have one more question. It's going to be this one is about resume. Do you guys offer help with providing a resume at all?
Yes, I do. And actually, that's what I specialize in. I provide full resume consultations and also resume creation packages. So you can check that out at www.getalifeatsea.com. Contact me through my contact form. And actually, if you want to check out as well, I have a cruise ship job starter kit and my How the Heck to Get a Job on a Cruise Ship guide under my product section. And within both of those products, I actually offer resume template guides to sort of push you through that whole process. But if you want really one-on-one assistance, I also provide that as well.
Wonderful. All right, one more time. Could you tell one more time for the people in the back that didn't hear you? How do we get in touch with you, Amanda?
Yeah, so again, the website, getalifeatsea.com. I'm on social media, so you can check out YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, LinkedIn. Just search me, Get a Life at Sea. If you're looking to find out in 30 seconds or less if a life at sea is for you, you can also take the free Are You Ready for a Life at Sea quiz. That's at getalifeatsea.com/cruise ship quiz. Or just shoot me an email or through my contact page, info@getalifeatsea.com. I am happy to chat and talk to you about getting you your own life at sea.
Amanda, this has been an incredible interview. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for answering all of our questions today.
Thanks so much for having me, and I'll be sure to go onto your Facebook page and Twitter and try and answer anyone's questions. If you're watching the replay on this, I will be popping in and answer questions as best I can as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Amanda. And for our viewers, remember to check out our main website at cruiseweek.tv, where you can find videos of not only the past web shows, including this one when it's already aired, but also our cruise ships and Cruise Week Season 1. So check out cruiseweek.tv and see what else we have for you. Now, it's time for our very, very fun Show Us Your Face segment, and this week's photo is going to come from Preston Ramos, who's taking a leap into some beautiful Caribbean Ocean water. Man, I wish I was there right now, don't you? Remember, if you want to be featured on our Show Us Your Face segment, please just post your picture on Facebook with the hashtag Cruise Week TV photo and a description, and we'll find it. Don't worry. So, in just 2 more weeks, I have to mention this, we're going to be heading to New Orleans. And when I say we, I mean everybody except for me is going to be heading to New Orleans. And March 27th is the date. They're going on the spring break cruise with Cruise Life Cargo and Kelly Brewer Travel. They're going to be streaming live from New Orleans and on the ship all week, bringing you an amazing trip to Cozumel on that Thursday with their tour guide, Adrian from Adrian Cozumel Tours. How lucky they are. Our weekly show that week is going to be on Friday, Matt 31st. Matt is going to be hosting it live on board because I won't be there, with plenty of guests joining him. And not that I'm bitter or anything. I'm not. I just want you to know that. But it's not no big deal. Anyway, I want to thank Kathy from RC Periscopers Group for helping us with our chat room over there and promoting us. And if you want to watch the fun live video from the ship, check out RC Periscopers on Facebook. Matt and Shally will be back next week when we will be doing part 1 of a 2-part segment all about cruise ship entertainment. And I'm going to be back the week after before Matt and Bird, the camera guy, head off to New Orleans because I won't be there. That's right, Cinderella doesn't get to go to the ball. Me? Well, I get to stay here and burn bodies at my day job. So until next time, keep cruising, cruisers. We'll see you next time.